Hello everyone, welcome to the TheGeoecologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos on various topics of geography, environment and research methodology on my channel, The Geoecologist. If you are new to this channel, please go to the playlist section and check for the earlier videos. Also, if you are looking for the paid courses for geography optional, master's entrance examination and others, you can visit our website, TheGeoecologist.com and get those courses details for yourself. Now, in today's video on political geography, we are going to learn about the various theories and various dimensions of the origin and evolution of the state. So the concept of state and its evolution through the journey of historical timeline, we are going to look into with certain theoretical perspectives in this particular lecture. So watch the video till the end to learn it all. And if you find the video is useful to you, so definitely share, also subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to press the like button for us. So now let's understand about the origin and evolution of the concept of the state. So if you go historically understanding this idea, so we'll see that not until about 5000 before Christ, or we say before Common Era, the villages began to aggregate into political units. So it was during the Bronze Age civilization that we see the making of a larger concept of state by the aggregation of these agrarian communities. So around 4000 BC, we observe the formation of the first kind of states in history. So we observe the Mesopotamian civilization, the city-states of Ur, Kish and Nigrisu and so many others. And then also we had the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro here in the Indus Valley civilization, and simultaneously all the other Bronze Age civilizations of the world. So if you observe what happened, there was this reference to state here in what ways, in what terms. So this is basically in terms of autonomy of the political unit. In what ways? So encompassing the communities within a given territory with a centralized form of government. This is what we are understanding in the forms of the state. So state started with the idea and then manifested as a autonomous territorial unit. So what was the important points here? Three important points. The power to collect taxes, which we also remember as Nile tax, Egyptian civilization. From there we got the ideas of taxation system. Then we say draftmen for work or war. So you say the inventory for war and people involved for this particular building of the safety and security of the state. And then what we observe is the decree and enforcement of law. So these are the three basic parameters on which we understand the origination or evolution of the concept of state. So if you observe what happens here, the classical thinkers and writers have various viewpoints over it. So if you go to ancient Greeks and Romans, what you'll observe, scholars like Aristotle were unfamiliar with the other forms of political organization because the thought was dominated by a natural entity of a state. So basically, state was considered as a natural entity until then. But there were many other explanations beginning to come in with time. So what you observe here, that age of exploration, the age of Renaissance in Europe, and also the age of enlightenment during later French Revolution, American Revolution and so many others, we observe that many Europeans and American scholars further delve deep into the ideas of state and try to understand it through various theories. So what you observe after the age of exploration, by Europeans specifically, the concept of state started to change, but independent villages or tribes made the state seem less natural. So this idea of natural state was being questioned now and thus needed more explanation now. So what happened? Many scholars started to explain these various kinds of state and also the ways of the emergency and evolution of a modern state. So what are the various theories? If you look into it, the first kind of theories are called voluntaristic theory. By choices, people made their states. Then what you observe is social contract theory. So the contract between society and the government. So that kind of thought that there was a need for this society to construct the idea of a state. Then what you observe is the forced theories, involuntaristic theories. Like for example, where wars happened, where because of aggression and oppression, the state had to be constructed. And then what you observe is the divine theory, which is having theological approach, divinity approach, and then what we observe is environmental circumscription, which is basically talking about a deterministic idea of environment, and then we evolved further into the political evolution and social evolution of the state. So these are the 6 major building blocks in terms of theories of origin of a state. So one by one, let's analyze these. So first of all, we see voluntaristic theories of state. What does it say? It's basically an automatic theory. So according to this theory, the invention of agriculture automatically brought into being the surplus of food. And then what happened? This enabled some individuals to divorce themselves from the food production because you had surplus. So now there was a branching, there was a extensive division of labor. And this started the occupational change and specialization. And there came the need for political integration, which united the number of previously independent communities into a given state formation. So this is the first kind of theory that we observe. So here if you observe the scholars who talk about it, one of them is Carl Wittfogel, whose talk of hydraulic hypothesis is very famous. So what does it say? The areas like arid and semi-arid areas of the world where villagers have to work really hard for irrigation. So what did they decide? They decided that it would be an advantage if the individual autonomies were merged, the villages were merged into a single large political unit which would take care of the administrative function, the irrigation on a larger scale. So this was also kind of a voluntary choice of the people. So this is where we say the voluntaristic theories give us a picture of the formation of the concept of state. Then you observe the social contract theory, which really became famous during 18th century, the age of enlightenment, which we say, right? The development of various ideas which led to the French Revolution and also American Revolution and many other things propped up around this time. So social contract theory comes from this work of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who was a Genevan philosopher, and he wrote this volume called The Social Contract, which was earlier published by the name of On the Social Contract or Principles of Political Right. Now in this 1762, this is later half of the 18th century. So what does he say? He says that people wanted or led an ideal life and enjoyed the idyllic happiness until when the need arose to build it around the concept of a political unity. So the ideal state was the natural state. But what happened? Because of the rise of the produced evils in terms of property, in terms of territorialization, in terms of rise of empires and annexation. So what happened here? The escape was to create a state for men to set up authority. And this is where this social contract between people and authority started. And this led to the formation of the state. So this is the second kind of theory, the Rousseau's theory. Then if you observe the forced theory, the involuntaristic theory, where it's not your choice simply. So there are two kinds of scholars divided in this involuntaristic theory. So who are the first kind of scholars? They believe and they justify that might makes it right. It means power is very important for safety and security. So this kind of thought was believed by certain scholars, and the essence of state in the sovereign will is dependent upon the control, the power, right? If the authority is not strong and it is not controlling the people, the state will collapse. This was the first kind of thought. And then the second kind of scholars was basically who attacked the state in terms of injustice, because they urged that individual freedom was being curtailed by the power of the state. So these were two kinds of believers who said that state acts as both. Once it gives us the security and safety and control as well, but at the same time, it also has a coercive action on the people. So if you observe further, in the Middle Ages, what you observe, a lot of wars happening around the world. So the theologians, basically people who believed in divine intervention, in religion and politics together, so they argued that state was based upon force and injustice. This was kind of a critique of a state to actually exert power on its citizens. So what you observe, that this was talking again about being a spiritual power being more dominant than the state power. So there was kind of a conflict in Europe between those people who believed in religion and the power of religion, power of godliness, the theologians, and then the people who actually wanted human control, the power, the state in terms of the authority and autonomy and sovereignty. So this is what you observe. But you will observe also that historically there is archaeological evidence of war being the basis for creation of state, right? So you say involuntaristically the state was created through the wars. So state of formation of Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, Japan, Greece, Rome, Northern Europe, Central Africa, Polynesia, Peru, Colombia, all these places have a lot of examples where wars and annexation of territories led to the creation of state further. So this is where we say involuntaristic theories talk about the formation of state. The warfare is the essential condition which have been pointed in these kind of theories, which is essential for the formation of a state. Now if you observe the fourth kind of theory, the divine theory, the word itself is divinity. So the large part of human history, the state was viewed as a divine creation, natural creation, godliness came into the picture, right? So the role of religion became very important here. So early Oriental empires, rulers claimed a divine light to control the affairs of their subjects, and that was their right. So the king was considered as the representation of a god, right? So divine origin. But remember, there was also this spat between the state and also the people who believed in religion. So you observe that state and religion had conflicts in European situation, but it was not like there in India. In India, the kings were the representative of godliness. That is how we see. So largely we say that in terms of the viewpoints, in terms of approaches, in India we have a different situation in terms of understanding of this divinity theory. Then further, if you observe the environmental circumscription, that environment paved way for people to create state. For example, if you observe those states who arose indigenously from their natural habitat, like the Nile, Tigris, Euphrates, Indus Valley. So when you see Nile, Tigris, Euphrates and Indus Valley civilization, what you observe, the old world was based on certain kind of natural parameter of fertile land, of fertile crescent, of people involved in agriculture, surplus, and then creation of a state around it. Similarly, if you observe the valleys of Mexico and coastal valleys of Peru, their civilization, Mesoamerican civilization. So what is commonality here? These areas differ from one another if you observe the perspective of areal differentiation. But what is the commonality? There is one thing common, and the common thing is the circumscribed agricultural land, the fertile land. So environment is determining the creation of a state here. Agricultural land and resources is actually creating the idea of a state. This is called environmental circumscription. Then further, the last and the most accepted and the modern is the political evolution, including the societal changes. So aggregation of villages into chiefdoms, chiefdoms into kingdoms, and then further acquisition of larger political units. This was the idea where internal evolution of state happened. Right from the Greeks and Roman Empire, we have observed it. And then further, these internal changes led to the external events, and further the society changed, the economy changed, and the need for being administered was actually sown as a seed there. So then evolved these modern states that you observe, where the political office, the administrative office was, appointed by people. So people were appointed in the powers in terms of administrators, in terms of officers, and then began the administrative law, and then further law and order. And this included the mobilization of labor for building, irrigation work, road, fortresses, palaces, temples, and this led to the foundation of a modern state that we are in today. So we observe that through historical analysis, through this timeline analysis, through this theoretical analysis, the origin and evolution of state had different ideas, different perspectives, and different points of time. And this is where we are the final form of the aggregation of our history. So this is how we analyze the origin and evolution of state. So now, when we have learned the various aspects of the evolution of the concept of state and various theories in this session, in the next session, we'll be learning more on different other aspects of political geography. So stay tuned, stay safe, keep subscribed, and also do share the videos with others as well.